Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode 59 of the Canberra Football Show. Matt Nicoletti joining me today is Michael Georgescu. Michael, how's it going? Are you enjoying being back in Canberra? Or?
Yeah, just having to, acclimatise again from the nice warm weather up in Queensland back down here. But, it's been all right. When you've lived in, Canberra for long enough, even though when you go off to another place that's a bit warmer, I guess you just get sort of used to it and you expect it. So, no, it's been fine. And obviously there was a lot of action over the course of the weekend, some big results as well, Matt, across the three leagues that we'll delve into fairly shortly. But nevertheless, a good weekend of football again in Canberra. It's always pleasant to see, goals being scored and, shock results coming in here and there. It sort of just adds to the mix of what sort of Canberra football can bring. So another great weekend, and keen to get into it with you. How are you going?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks. Of course, we've got the weekend off next week due to the Kanga Cup. So if you're bored and want to do something with the kids, take them down to the Kanga Cup. That'll hopefully the weather will hold up, because I'm sure you remember playing Kanga Cup nearly every single day. At least two of the 5 days are raining. So let's hope it holds up for them in that regard. But nice to see one of the biggest football tournaments in the Southern Hemisphere back in Canberra after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID. So in saying that, though, before the weekend off, like you said, Michael, we had a few interesting results, and let's leave this way. A lot went on. So let's get straight into it, shall we? NPL, let's start with, we begin with 2-0 draws on the Saturday games. One was Olympic against Tigers FC. Second draw of the weekend since the West Canberra and Monaro one started before them 45 minutes earlier. The Tigers winless run sort of continues as they're sort of struggling for wins at the moment. But this was an important point considering how West Canberra are doing and Belco doing just below them. Few shakeups on both sides. Nathan Medjic and Nick Popovich lined up for Olympic. They've made the move back to Canberra Olympic, where they were from originally. Obviously, two pivotal players. Popovich scored a lot of goals for Tigers, and of course, Nathan Medjic was the captain of Tigers. But Tigers did get Kofi Danning up front, which is a big get for them. And as I'll mention shortly, he was linking up quite well. He dropped back a lot. He was that focal point of play where he could, do 1-2s off the other players and the wingers running in. So he seems to be a player that can pull the strings up front and be that sort of target man to, pass off and continue play. But before we start, Michael, what do you think of Tigers' new jersey? It was a lighter shade of yellow, sort of like a Villarreal submarine yellow. It's good to see, because if I'm not mistaken, someone can correct me, and I'm sure they'll message me if I'm wrong, but that sort of idea of the Tigers jersey has been very similar for a while.
Yeah, no, it's always good seeing a new jersey being introduced. I mean, it so often doesn't really happen all that too much, especially here with the teams that we have. Obviously, we've been so accustomed to jerseys and teams just sticking with it for years on end. Obviously, that sort of goes into the finance side of things as well, in terms of what clubs sort of have those funds available to want to be able to go through that process of getting some new jerseys and whatnot. But, a welcoming addition. And like you said, a bit of that sort of Villarreal yellow submarine sort of vibe to it. So, no, I'm a fan of new jerseys. Keep them coming, I reckon. Who knows now, that they might have just started a trend. Tigers, we might see some more down the line.
Well, to be fair, Gungahlin changes their shirt every year, and Olympic had a new shirt this year. Monaro's was a little new, but it's still sort of the similar thing. So the reason why this stood out to me was because, like I said, it was a lighter shade. It was just sort of, it really popped out in that regard. In terms of the play, though, Pretty close all across the board. The pitch was super choppy from when, for you could see it was like we mentioned it. I think I mentioned it last week when I was doing the women's game with Jeremy, how choppy it was, and after the rain, it didn't hold up very well. But credit to both sides; they still both tried to play their football. They both tried to. They didn't really change up their game despite the way the pitch was. One thing I'm interested to see with Olympic is obviously Popovic played sort of as the 10, Heggie up top, and then Alan James sort of played out wide. When Alan James has mostly been in behind the striker most of the season. I know there's been certain games where it's been a bit different, but it's going to be interesting to see how they amalgamate. Popovic played well with Alan James and all that. Also, James is one of their leading goal scorers, I believe, as well for Olympics. So it's going to be interesting to see how Robbie Katnack sort of plays around with that team. He's got plenty of options though, which isn't a bad thing to have. But it's going to be interesting to see how they play, especially since James probably for me has been one of the unsung heroes this season. So he's probably going to find a way to find the best out of all players, because when you got to play like Popovic, obviously you want to get the best out of him as well. So I'm sure it'll take a couple of weeks to get that going, but once again another lethal addition up front for Olympic. Like I said, in terms of Tigers, Kofi Danning seems to be a very good signing. Obviously, he's one of the more accomplished players to come out of Canberra recently, and he's been up front for Monaro quite a bit this season, probably more than he was last season, even with COVID aside and the COVID period off aside in general. So essentially, Tigers still remain in sixth, as do Olympic. They both remain 2 points off each other. Olympic only 1 point off O'Connor now due to O'Connor's loss instead of 2, but O'Connor do have that match in hand against West Canberra, so it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Tigers still 5 points off West Canberra. West Canberra, of course, gained that 1 point on Belco, like we'll mention later. Like we said, though, scoreless draw, we haven't had too many this season. I think Croatia and Monaro were the only ones. So I just sort of wanted to break down what I saw of the new signings and in that regard.
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, Matt, 2 goalless draws this weekend, and I can't remember the last time that's ever happened, let alone one draw.
Croatia against Monaro, I believe, in one of the first rounds of the season.
Yeah, but it's just a very rare occasion is my point in case. And, West Canberra, obviously unbeaten now, Matt, in 2 games for the first time this season. Obviously coming off a win, and then backing that up with a draw. So to be able to have 4 points from their last 2 games is something they haven't been able to do at all this season. Obviously coming off their first win of the season last time out. And, it's a good point for West Canberra. I know that they're sort of down towards, the bottom of the table, but when you look at it from the perspective of how good Monaro has been over the last, however many games, Matt, Monaro have been playing with such a great confidence, and they've picked up some great results. Obviously one of the informed teams in the competition. And, I think when you look at it from that perspective and what West Canberra have had to endure sort of at the start of the season, and now they're sort of, picking things up after, the run that they had in the Australian Cup qualifiers, things are really turning around for them. Things are starting to look a lot more sort of positively out on the pitch as well in terms of how they're playing. So I think that they're really sort of working on their combinations on the field, and a lot of those players are sort of getting more familiar with each other now that they've played a lot of games, together just over halfway through the season now, where at the start of the season, maybe it was just, a point of just trying to get familiar with each other, and maybe they just weren't sure where best to get the best out of each of their players. But it looks as though that they're slowly starting to figure that out now at West Canberra. And like I said, it's a great point for them against an informed Monaro team who, Monaro will be a little bit disappointed that they, were held to a draw in this game, Matt, especially, on the point that they've been in such great form. They're in the top 3, and this result actually, puts them 4 points behind Gungahlin now, who are in second place at the moment behind league leaders, Canberra, Croatia. So it does have a little bit of an impact on them. They're trying to really get themselves to move from third to second. So very, very unusual with the two draws that we've just gone over. No goals to break down, which is another sort of strange aspect of this. But nevertheless, it probably showed that, bearing the conditions that all four teams, were a lot more sort of solid defensively. And, there's 4 clean sheets there as well. So I'm sure that, there can't be too many, frowns on the faces of those associated with those clubs.
No, not at all. And like we said, West Canberra, these results were bound to come. They definitely haven't been playing like they've been a bottom table team. So sort of like we're going to say for CPL, let's just say West Canberra get a win against O'Connor, not really midweek, like Monday after the weekend off, or if they get a draw, if they get a draw, 3 points off Belco. If they get a win, they're only 1 point off Belco. So they will be, right back into the mix. And then, so it's going to be very interesting to see how we go. But in terms of Monaro, I think they'll probably be a little more disappointed with the draw in that regard, considering they're 4 points off Gungahlin. But once again, it just comes down to see how important that game will be between Monaro, Gungahlin, and then Monaro and Croatia again, and then Gungahlin and Croatia again. We're going to see an interesting end to the season between the bottom of the table and the top of the table and the top 4. So despite the 0-0 draws, it does give us some interesting perspectives as we head into the final half of the season. And next up, Canberra, Croatia against Belconnen United, 4-0 to Canberra, Croatia. Tanoski with 2 goals, Dominici with a goal, and Baric with a goal. Big result here for Canberra, Croatia, 4-0, of course, and a home win as well. Belco, this is always usually a pretty close matchup, unfortunately for Belco. In terms of the scoreline anyway, that wasn't the case this time round. Canberra, Croatia with a blitzing start in the first half. Tanoski opened the scoring pretty early with an absolutely blistering header. He absolutely smashed that into the corner, and the height on that as well, Michael, might I say. He got quite a bit of height on that jump, and his second goal, which was the third goal, linked up quite well there and was able to bury it in the back of the net. Stephen Dominici was the second goal of the matchup in the 22nd minute. What was key for this one was the Canberra Croatia midfield, the pressing to go forward to win it back in midfield. Baric, after it was eventually pressed, and I believe it was Kier, put the ball to Baric, and Baric was able to cross it in, came off one of the Belco defenders, and Dominici was there, recouped the ball, and put an absolute bullet above Alex Connell in the goals, put it just underneath the crossbar. Not much Connell could do about that bullet there. Focal point, as always, up front, Stephen Dominici, and Daniel Baric put the icing on the cake in the second half with another towering header to add to his goal tally this season and put the sort of final nail in the coffin of this matchup. Belco obviously will be disappointed to lose 4-0 in this matchup, especially since their form recently has been pretty good. And unfortunately for them, they also concede a point on West Canberra, who are slowly starting to creep up on the rest of the competition. And due to this as well, Tigers go an extra point above them. So there's now 2 points. There's only 1 point now between Tigers and Belco when they were tied on points before. And Tigers also have the better of the goal difference if it comes down to that. So Belco, this is one of those results where they sort of need to just move on. Obviously, take what you can from it, but not dwell on this one too much, because this is a crucial time between West Canberra, Belco, Tigers, Olympic. Even though Olympic are still sort of close to this one as well, they're also not. They're only like a point off O'Connor. So between fourth at the moment and 8th, it's very, very close.
Next up, we have Gungahlin United and O'Connor Knights, Matt. And this was, easily one of the games of the season. We're, like you said before, where the two previous matches before the one you just dissected, we didn't have any goals in those first two games, but there were plenty and plenty of goals in this one, 7 in total. Gungahlin came away 4-3 winners in this match. Goals from Brindabella, Madrid, Mickle, Gaspari, and McLaughlin. And for O'Connor, it was Adams with a brace and Eddie Coggan getting on the score sheet for the Knights. An absolute blockbuster that took place between these two teams, Matt. It was pretty much what you would have expected heading into the game, especially when you consider the last encounter that they had earlier on in the season as well. Two quality teams, and it was absolute fireworks. Right from the beginning, Gungahlin showed, how devastating they can be on the counter, and especially when you got Bernardo Madrid attacking space. When you've got a defense that's trying to play you offside, it only smells trouble. And we talked about his NPL goal scoring record, Matt, and when you have him in positions in and around the box, you pretty much know that most of the time it's going to go in. And that's exactly what he did. He tucked the ball home in brilliantly into the bottom corner. But the Knights hit them straight back, Matt, a minute later, through Michael Adams. He pounced on an opportunity that he created for himself by putting a bit of pressure on Bernardo Rene. And, he was the quicker to react, approach the box, and found the back of the net with a nice finish as well. And I felt as though from that moment on, that's when Gunners really started to create numerous opportunities for themselves to try and get a lead. And that actually came back to bite them, because it was the Knights who actually went 2-1 ahead, through Coggan. And there was a bit of sort of drama around the goal, because you can see he clatters into the keeper, and the keeper's on the ground. And then there's a bit of mayhem going on in the box, and he gets the ball and tucks it in. The referee doesn't say anything. He says play on. And at that point, it's 2-1 to the Knights just before halftime. A crucial time as well, getting that goal a couple of minutes before the break to go into halftime with a lead. And Gungahlin United, they obviously had a stern talking to at halftime from Marcel Munoz at halftime, because they came out with a good intensity in the second half. They put the pressure on, and that's what got themselves level at 2-2 through Mickle. It was great sort of improvisation to play sort of a short corner set piece, and Mickle got the ball in the box, took a really nice touch in a crowded box, and sort of just glanced the ball into the bottom corner along the ground. And then they were able to put on some excellent football from around the box, Matt. Some great link up play, and that led to Gaspari scoring and making it 3-2 to Gunners. And then 11 minutes later, this was the crucial goal, where McLaughlin scored 11 minutes later. Like I said, he saw the keeper coming out. He sort of just uses the outside of the foot a little bit to put it past him. And, the defense just didn't have enough time there to try and provide a clearance. And that made it 4-2. Obviously, Adams scored his second goal of the game in injury time, but it just proved a little bit of a case of too little, too late. And it sort of just sums up what a game of football that was, Matt. An absolutely cracking game. A great result for Gungahlin United, as it still keeps pressure on Canberra, Croatia at the top of the table. And for O'Connor, they're obviously still in fourth spot. They still occupy a position in the top four, but they will be looking around them at those teams that will be looking to, get points and make their case for getting inside the top four. So nothing of a point of concern for O'Connor Knights. They're still a quality side that have great players. Although they didn't get the result this time, they're still a top four side, and you can be sure they'll bounce back in less to no time.
Just before that, we should probably mention it was a very fiery affair. Quite a few cards for both sides, something like 11 accumulated cards or something like that.
Oh yes,
Alex Tiranich was sent off as well. That the assistant coach, and also there were a few calls as well in terms of handball calls for penalties and
chaotic
challenges that both sides thought were too rough, and that went without knowing. I think Daniel Roberts as well came off after one of the challenges, if I'm not mistaken. And so it was just one of those fiery games. Let's get straight into our matches for the week. I was going to say the weekend, but the next fortnight, obviously, Kangaroo Cup is happening, so there won't be any games this weekend. Michael, let's start with the first one at Melrose Synthetic. West Canberra Wanderers, Gungahlin United, Saturday 16th, 2:15 p.m. Melrose Synthetic. West Canberra Wanderers will have a competitive match in that time. Well, just after that weekend on the Monday, they're playing their catch-up game against O'Connor. I think this will be a close one. West Canberra, like we said, they've turned around their form in terms of results anyway. We've always discussed how well they've been playing. Gungahlin, though, at the moment, only 1 point off Canberra, Croatia. I can't see them slipping up anytime soon. In saying that, though, it's going to be a close one. I'm going to go for Gungahlin victory here. What will be interesting, though, like we said, what result will West Canberra be coming into this matchup from the O'Connor match? Will be a win, draw, or a loss? That might be pivotal into how this matchup plays out.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Gungahlin United win in this one, but it'll be very close, like you mentioned. And, I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if West Canberra were to come away with a result in this game, Matt. They've built up a little bit of momentum now, like I mentioned earlier, 2 games unbeaten, 4 points from their last 2, something that they haven't managed to do for this season. That'll give them a lot of confidence, but I just see the quality and the confidence that Gungahlin United are playing with at the moment. Prior to that last match against O'Connor, they defeated Canberra, Croatia, so they're in tremendous form at the moment, and they're going to be hard to stop. So I'm going to go for Gungahlin.
Next up, Belconnen United, Tigers FC, Saturday, June 16th, 3 p.m. at McKellar. We mentioned there's only 1 point between these two teams at the moment, Michael. That will be pivotal in that regard. So a lot to play for in this one. For that reason, I'm going to sit on the fence for this one and say a draw.
Matt, I'm going to go for a Belconnen United win in this match. Even though they've, had a bit of a mixed season, they have had some positive sparks here and there. And I think it sort of speaks to the troubles a little bit why I am picking Belconnen in this one, due to the struggles of Tigers and, their ability. Well, they're just in a sort of pretty big rut at the moment, Tigers, but we know they have the quality to bounce back, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were to do it in a match like this. And I think the addition of Queanbeyan, like you mentioned, is a big piece for them, and he could prove to be valuable in terms of getting Tigers back on the right track. But I do see Belconnen United winning this match, especially at home at McKellar, where they've been able to perform a little bit better recently.
Next up, the big one, O'Connor Knights, Canberra, Croatia, Saturday 16th, 3 p.m. at O'Connor enclosed. It should have a week off. I'm not sure if there are any Kangaroo Cup matches. There might be on that pitch, but like we said, the pitch didn't look like in the best of conditions, which we both know the style of play that both teams like to play. But look, I'm going to go for a draw here. It was very close last time, wasn't it, Michael? Canberra, Croatia getting it in the death. Look, obviously with Canberra, O'Connor Knights, it all depends on how that Monday result goes. That could, like with the West Canberra one, that could have a telling say on how this match goes as well. O'Connor they're always up for any matchup, but they're always up for the derby, especially. And considering last time, they probably have a point to prove, considering they only lost in the death. So I'm going to sit on the fence for this one. How about you, Michael?
I was close to sitting on the fence with this one, but I think Canberra, Croatia are going to edge it. I think there plays a little bit of psychological warfare in the way that the match that went down last time between these two teams will play into this next match. And we always talk about the quality that Canberra, Croatia possess, especially in big moments and in big games as well. They always turn up, and you know that they're going to give 110%. So I'm inclined to stick with my Canberra, Croatia pick, but it'll certainly be close. All these matches have been really close so far, and that doesn't change with the next and last match that we've got.
No, it doesn't. Monaro Panthers, Canberra Olympics, Saturday 16th, 5:45 p.m. at Riverside. It's going to be a very tough one, especially since Olympic could have if they get a win in this one, they could have the opportunity of getting the 4, depending on how results go in the next couple of matches regarding O'Connor Knights. So there's a lot on the line here for both sides. Depending on how results go, Monaro could be moving up the ladder as well. So a lot on the line here. I'm going to go with the Monaro victory, but it'll be very close. I think this will be a very, very close matchup. Not to say Olympic can't get a result here, because Olympic, let's not forget, did take Monaro to the limit the last time they both played here in that FA Cup semi-final, which Monaro won on penalties. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Monaro as well. I expect them to bounce back following that defeat. With that draw that they had against West Canberra. I just think that they'll take what they can from that game, and they'll look to obviously improve. They'll no doubt be disappointed with coming away with a point in those circumstances against West Canberra, even though West Canberra have drastically improved over the last few weeks. But I see them coming out with a strong intensity, especially in a game like this when we saw how good the game was that they played in the Australian Cup, like you mentioned, Matt. So I think that trend is going to continue and boil over into this one. Should be a cracker, but I am, going to go for Monaro.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our NPLW segment of the show. Joining me, as always, is Jeremy Magan. Jeremy, glad to see you again. And did you get warm, mate, after the horrendous wind yesterday when we called the game?
It was cold, wasn't it? At the Gungahlin enclosed oval. I wasn't sure if I was going to be sick today because, as like every other man, whenever it gets a bit cold, I get sick really quickly. But I'm actually okay. Warmed up real quick. The hot bath was necessary.
I'm sure it would have been. Let's get straight into the action. Big game over at McKellar Park. 2-1 Canberra, Croatia over Belconnen United. Keating and Ross with the goals for Croatia. Clark with the goal for Belconnen United. Canberra, Croatia, once again, another victory, still undefeated in this competition. 10 wins, I believe, and 2 draws for Croatia. Very strong first half. Like we said, Keating and Ross with the goals. Keating's header, might add, Jeremy. Very, very good header. Got some good height on that jump as well. Belconnen got back in, tried to get themselves back into the game with that goal with 20 minutes to go, and you thought maybe can they spark a comeback here. Overall, Jeremy, another Canberra-Croatia win, but Belco trying to make that comeback maybe a little too late, like we've seen sort of in these big games recently.
Yeah, maybe. I think it was a very good game as far as intensity goes. It was obviously always going to be interesting to see how Canberra-Croatia works without having Krista Hagen in the middle of the park. I think Bela Barac wasn't playing either yesterday. So Anaros was starting, and so was Sienna Birney and Brittany Palombier and Grace Gill. So the tactic would have been changed a bit. And that's a few injuries now with Canberra, Croatia, as we mentioned when we were calling the game. So it's always going to be hard for the reigning champions to keep winning when they keep losing some of their best players, with Ali Churchill already out for the season. So they did what they could do well. I think they defended really well, Canberra, Croatia. It's important, and they took advantage of their momentum. I mean, that goal from Beck Keating on a corner kick is very it's great for Canberra, Croatia to be able to score almost not on their first attack, but as soon as they can bring the danger into the box, making it count is always important. And then after that, I think Belconnen maybe was a bit too nice, I guess, offensively. There was some opportunities, but always the last shot was deflected, or there was always a foot in front of the ball, and maybe lacking a bit of that killer instinct that could have probably get them a point or more. Like the player who has the most opportunity, the most shots on target, is Karen Clark from a distance, and maybe that says a bit as well that how strong Canberra, Croatia is defensively, but also maybe what Belconnen United needs to work on to try and get those points against those big teams, which they haven't managed to do this season, except the 1 point against Olympic, of course. So yeah, it's good for Canberra, Croatia, because they're showing us how strong they are. They're showing us the resources. Great for Anna Rose that she scores in her first start. Very, very selfless from Brittany Palombi. We've seen her trying a chance from this angle, and this time she picked at the far post, Anna Rose. But yeah, I think it's getting hard for Canberra, Croatia, because obviously they are losing their talent, and they have to call a bit more in the resist player, etc. we'll see if they can keep going the way they are. For Belconnen United, it's better. It's only a 2-1 defeat, so hopefully they can also find the positive in that and work on what is the difference between losing by 1 goal and an equalizer or a win and finish the season on high.
And Belco do go up to 3rd place as well after that catch-up match against CUA, where they were 4th before, 6 points off Canberra Olympic. They are next up. We've got, like I just mentioned, then Canberra Olympic 3-0 over West Canberra Wanderers at Melrose. Jalocca, Roden, and Ash Sykes. Despite obviously West Canberra's form this season, I know they're coming off those 3 draws, but they haven't lost too much this season. They weren't able to put that into display against Canberra Olympic. Obviously, it's very hard against an Olympic side that, like we've mentioned before, they sort of have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder in terms of results. They know they can't drop any more. They can't afford to drop any more results, considering they only play Canberra, Croatia one more time. Some of these goals were really good. The Jalocca goal, sort of on the end of a scramble. Roden's was a great touch and turnaround from her. Like I've mentioned recently, she's been a bit of an unsung hero for Olympic this season, been very pivotal in that midfield. And Ash Sykes' goal, what she does best, running in behind off, I believe it was Sarah Johnston, put a ball through to her there and using that speed to get on the end of it. And of course, expertly putting it in the corner. Once another win for Olympic here, Jeremy. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, I don't know if Sarah Johnston's second assist to Ashley Sykes was on purpose. We'll say yes, but you see that when she passes the ball, you see her reaction, and she's a bit like as if she missed the pass, and then ended up being an assist for Ash Sykes. So I'm sure she was happy to see the ball ending that way. Yeah, look, Olympic. We mentioned that when we were commenting on them at O'Connor. They're probably, if you're West Canberra, you're probably better off facing Olympic at O'Connor right now than you are on your own turf, because Olympic knows, right? Because Olympic knows how to play football and how to play quick football. And when you play on synthetic, even though the players aren't used to play on synthetic, at least the ball goes where you intend it to be. And we've seen that it just was waves after waves of Olympic attacking. And for West Canberra, you could see the fatigue coming maybe way too early for Ray Castro in the defense. I mean, that first goal is a scramble, and there's also so much you can do. But that second goal, Meg Roden, who's so good at finding the empty space and going into the box when it matters, had so much space in that box, and you just can't afford that if you're West Canberra. You can't have, I think it was Melo Callahan who was 4 meters away from Meg Roden in the box. You just can't have that, and then they pay it straight away. So Canberra Olympic will be there until the end. They score when it matters. They had definitely a few opportunities to score more. So 3-0 is not the worst results for West Canberra, because they show that they could still stop Olympic, I guess, at least 50% of the time. So it's going to be, for West Canberra, I don't know if it's a wake-up call, but I guess it's showing where their level is and what they have to do to be able to stop those teams when the conditions are favoring the other team. It's going to take, I guess, a bit more hard work, a bit more focus, a bit more intensity. And Canberra Olympic was playing without Mickey Thornton, who's injured right now. So it's also, a weapon that was taken off. But again, we keep saying how great the squad coached by Nicole Begg is and how much depth there is. So you lose Mickey Thornton and you still have an 11 that could probably start in any other team in the competition. So good win for Canberra Olympic. They are definitely putting number 3 and number 4 away with that win. And now the focus is really that battle against Canberra Croatia for the premiership, which, as you say, very, very rightly so, they have to win every single game, Olympic, and hope that Canberra Croatia is going to trip somewhere to try and get that premiership. And I'm sure that that's what they're going to do until the very end of the season, or at least endeavor to do, because they'd like to have a nice little triplet, the cup, the premiership, the championship. I'm sure it's something that is somewhere in the head of the Olympic players.
And next up is CUA 2-1 loss against Wagga City Wanderers. Scott and Castle with the goals for Wanderers. Reith Mueller with the goal for Canberra United Academy. Huge result for Wagga City Wanderers. This is their first victory of the season. made a good account of themselves as well in this matchup. Scored two of them. Won the first half very early, put themselves in a good position, which is good to see. Wagga go that and go on the offensive early and get that goal. And sort of similar, like we said last week, Jeremy. Sort of they took advantage, or one of them they took advantage anyway, of sort of a slip up at the back, and they're really taking that initiative. Like we've mentioned the last couple of weeks, like Sam Gray mentioned when he came on as well, and they were able to see the victory out as well. Reef Mueller's goal, I saw it. I think they were calling for an offside there, and I went back and watched it, and I thought it was onside, but you could clearly tell that Wagga were sort of expecting that to be called as, or at least the players anyway, majority of them were expecting that to be called as an offside. And I guess what's also important for Wagga City is they're only 1 point off Tuggeranong United now, Jeremy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a massive win for the Wanderers, and congratulations. And, when you work hard, you reap the rewards eventually. It might not be the game where they thought they were going to get the win, the Wanderers, but kudos to them coming to Hawker and getting the win over Canberra United Academy. Magan Castle's 50th WNPL game and a wonderful free kick to celebrate it. I think the Academy will be disappointed. The past few games, they might have shown that it was maybe not as good as we've seen at the beginning of the season, the mix of the injuries and, of course, the body taking a bit of a blow as far as fatigue for the Academy players, just because there's so many games playing at once and there's more training than other teams, etc. So there's a lot of football played. The weather definitely affected the game a little bit. The first goal, you can see that the ball goes high in the air, and you and me felt the wind at Gungahlin. It probably was about the same at Hawker. So the ball becomes a bit hard to clear away, and then the Piper Scott didn't leave any chance to Eliza Evans and was happy to score that first goal. It's great that Wagga City was able to get the win. We were waiting for it all season. It's going to motivate that young group to finish the season on a high note. It's so hard when you just can't get a positive result regardless of how well you might be playing. So it's well deserved that they finally get those 3 points. For the Academy, it's back to work. It was an opportunity to get close to the top 4 that has been wasted, and now they see Gungahlin coming back on them. Hopefully, Sarah West will find the words to remotivate her team. The season is not over for them. They can go to the top 4. You just can't afford to make those kind of mistakes.
And next up, Gungahlin United 3-1 over Tuggeranong United. Erica Pennyfield opened the score in the first half with a nice strike after a trademark Gungahlin sequence, passing around and shifting their markers. In terms of Gungahlin's goals anyway, Piper Lockley's goal was also great. Took down the ball beautifully and struck it nicely. Buried it in the back of the net. She beat her marker as well to get to that one. Ella Brown came off the bench as well, and her goal was probably the epitome of a bullet from outside the box. Big win for Gungahlin. New coach Andrew Woodman is now 2 wins from 2 in both his matches, and this is Gungahlin's 3rd win of the season and their only victory that wasn't against Wagga City Wanderers. If I'm not mistaken, they also leapfrogged CUA in terms of the ladder. Yes, they do. Just had to double check that. They leapfrogged CUA as well into 5th place, but they are 9 points, if I'm not mistaken, off West Canberra Wanderers, who are in 4th. So still a bit of work to do to get into the top 4, but Woodman seems to be finding that consistency at the moment with Gungahlin. In terms of Tuggies, though, the scoreline in terms of going down by 2 as the difference, probably a little harsh on them in this matchup. Gungahlin did create more opportunities in that regard, but I thought Tuggies also played very well. We mentioned their pressing, which they pressed for quite a bit of this matchup, Jeremy, especially a lot in that first half. Safe to say they probably, I would say, smothered the midfield, forced Gungahlin to their central midfielders anyway to play it back always, and then Gungahlin's, I would say, in that first half, most of their chances came down through the wings, not through the midfield, because Tuggeranong just gave them very little space in that regard. And Hall's goal was a screamer as well from outside the box. Great reaction as well for that one, only 2 minutes after the goal. Sort of faded near the end, though. Like I said, 2 goals. The difference between them, probably a little harsh on them, but they played very well, and they'll probably be a little disappointed to drop points there. Jeremy?
Yeah, we've seen Paulo Romero's reaction at the end, right? When we told him that he that his team played a good game, he was definitely disappointed, saying that, they fall asleep twice and twice they concede in the end of the game. And that's unfortunate, but it's also a learning curve for Tuggies and for that team who's, as we can see, playing really well together now. The press was coordinated. We said during the comms that we didn't know if they were going to be able to keep that press up when they were going to play against the wind, and they did. And they did well. I was very pleasantly surprised, again by Tuggeranong and how well they set up defensively and how well they're able to bring the danger to the other team, at least make them doubt their ability to build up play. And we've seen some uncharacteristic mistakes from Gungahlin, whether it was the Tonini passes that weren't precise enough, or some of the controls from the defenders or the midfielders. But it's not necessarily individual mistake, more so than just they were under pressure for 90 minutes, and it's tiring, and the conditions didn't help. But if you know that whenever you get the ball, there's a player who's going to be on you in 5 seconds, then your decisions are a bit rushed, and it's a bit harder to make the right decision. And Tuggeranong really created that doubt, Tuggeranong, in the Gungahlin mind. As far as Gungahlin goes, we know the talent that there is in that team. Andrew Woodman is trying to get the best out of it. And there's moments in the game where we see it, like against the wind. I think they were probably better against the wind than they were with the wind, the Gunners. But a couple of times they're able to just bring the ball back up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touches, as you mentioned, usually finishing on the wings, with both Erica Pennyfields and Annie Grove working really hard yesterday afternoon. But you do still expect a little bit more from the Gunners. You can see that, the DeMargo sisters, they're not at the top of their confidence football-wise. Sometimes there's a bit of lack of movement to try and get the ball out better. And as I mentioned, the second half, when they have the win in their back, I thought that there was a chance that they were going to just, settle siege on the Tuggeranong's box, but it didn't happen. They were not able to do that. And I'm sure, Andrew Van will look back at that game and say, it's great, we got the win, and we could see how happy it was when Ella Brown finally scores the third. But there's still some work to do for the Gunners, and for them to end up where we expect them to be, which is much closer to the top 4. That work will need to happen. And, what better test than facing Canberra Olympic in a couple of weeks.
Let's get into our round 13 fixtures in a fortnight's time. Wagga City Wanderers as Belconnen United, Sunday, July 17th, 2:30 p.m. at Gissing Oval in Wagga. I'm going to say Belco for this one, but Wagga will be coming off a boatload of confidence after getting their first victory of the season, knowing that they're only 1 point off 7th place, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's almost heartbreaking that you're facing Belconnen after getting those first win of the season, because Belco is going there to take no prisoners. They have to get the win, and so they'll fight hard for it. I'll go for a win for Belconnen as well.
Canberra United Academy, Tuggeranong United, Sunday, June 17th, 2:30 p.m. at Hawker Football Centre. Like you said, CUA probably not on the best of form. I really like what I've seen from Tuggeranong for what I've seen the last couple of weeks. I'm going to go down the middle and say a draw here. How about you, Jeremy?
I'll give the win to CUA, hoping that they use that game to bounce back, but it's 100% going to be a tough matchup.
Canberra, Croatia, West Canberra Wanderers, Sunday, July 17th, 3 p.m. at Deakin Stadium. I'm going to say Canberra, Croatia here. The last time we were there, though, we called this matchup, and West Canberra defended very well for the first, 20 or so minutes, and forced Canberra, Croatia into a change, and then it didn't open up for Canberra, Croatia until then, really. So I'm sure they'll take something out of that matchup, but I'm going to say Croatia here. How about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'll go for Canberra, Croatia as well. I'll be at that game with Russ. Russ doesn't have any men's game on that Sunday, so we'll do exactly. So we'll do the women's together on Sunday at Deakin. I'll go for a Canberra, Croatia win as well, although I'm sure that West Canberra will try and come and prevent Canberra, Croatia from scoring as long as possible, as usual.
Gungahlin United, Canberra Olympic next Sunday, July 17th. Must have wrote June for all this. July 17th, 3 p.m. Gungahlin enclosed. Andrew Woodman up against his old side, Olympic, for the first time, I believe, since he's left. This should be an interesting one considering Gungahlin's recent form, but like we said, it's a bit hard to bet against Olympic when they know they have a mission till the end of the season.
Yeah, I'd go for an Olympic win as well for that exact reason. They have to win every single game. I think, Nicole Beck knows what the journey is, and I'm sure they'll do whatever it takes to take 2 points again.
And that's it for us. Weekend off in terms of football. Anyway, Jeremy, any last words? You told me you watched some Kanga Cup today.
Yeah, I went to the Caldwell Fields to watch a bit of the I think it was the cup round that's played at Caldwell Field today. Great football. Great to see the youth of the region and of the country battling it out. Both boys and girls played some good football. And yeah, anybody who's listening, just go and watch some football this week. There's a lot of it all around the capital, so it's a good opportunity to see some players that unfortunately were unable to come to the capital the past couple of years. Finally, a youth tournament. There's nothing better than football tournament. So go and watch the Kanga Cup.
And let's hope the weather keeps at bay, because anyone that's been here for an extended period of time knows it always rains in Kanga Cup week, at least 2 days at least. So let's see how that goes.
And we'll kick things off with a big result in CPL. Wagga City Wanderers 3-2 against ANU out there in Wagga. Kadzola, Matheson and Lucas on the score sheet for the home team, and Deans with a double for ANU. Very competitive first half in this one, with Wagga coming back twice from behind in the first half to level the score. Heading into the break, obviously that gave them a lot of confidence going into the second half, and that's what Lucas was then able to produce. He made it 3-2 just a couple of minutes after half time to obviously prove to be the difference in this match in the second half. You know, it's a huge win for Wagga City, you know, as they make it 2 from 2 against ANU already this season, Matt. And I don't think many people would have predicted that at the start of the year. And that's not to say that Wagga aren't a good side, but we just know how good ANU are. And they've proven to have their number twice already this season. You know, this victory also means that Wagga's only 2 points off Brindies and the top 4. So they're right in the mix, Matt, very close. A huge result in the context of that as well, of them trying to get closer to the top 4. You know, it was a competitive first half. You know, like we mentioned, ANU, they did manage to take the lead twice. However, they were pegged back twice going into half time, which, you know, would have been frustrating for them, you know, having to work so hard to build those 2 leads, only to lose those 2 leads in the space of one half of football. And, you know, Chase Deans was, you know, he scored both of their goals, you know, as he adds to his growing goals tally. We know how prolific he's been in CPL football for a very long time. And, you know, despite the loss, ANU, they still remain above Wagga via goal difference at this stage, and 2 points off Brindies and the top 4. So they're exactly just in that place as well, right in the mix, as they sit in 5th position, just outside the top 4. And we've mentioned that ANU, you know, they had a difficult start to the season, and then they managed to sort of turn it around a little bit. This result will hurt them slightly, but it'll be important for them just to keep their heads and move forward as they look to get themselves back in the top 4, because we've been so used to them as a top 4 side for so long in this competition. And, you know, it just makes you think when they'll be able to sort of get themselves back in there. You feel as though they will, but you just can't put your finger on sort of when they'll be able to do it. What's the next matchup that we've got, Matt? It was another huge result, and I think it would have been one that not many people were expecting.
Well, it is the derby, right? You throw sort of form out the window, as Webby said last week on the show. Huge win for White Eagles. 2-0 victory. Kagala with both the goals as they bounced back tremendously from their loss to Yoogali last week. Kagala's 2 goals came in the space of 3 minutes to extend his tally to 15 for the season. Kagala's second goal was reportedly an absolute worldie as well to seal those points. White Eagles stood firm defensively after these 2 goals near the end of the first half, and in the second half sort of had the backs against the wall, of course against a Queanbeyan side who would have been, you know, rampaging to sort of make that comeback. In terms of Queanbeyan, though, always disappointing to lose a derby match, but in this case, especially, they would have been disappointed considering that they gained that ground on Tuggeranong last week, and now after this loss and Tuggeranong's victory, it means that they lose ground, and it's now 8 points the difference. like we said, Queanbeyan did push back and try and make that breakthrough. Apparently, they had a lot of chances in this one near the end of the first half and in the second half. But White Eagles were able to stand firm and make those 2 goals that they scored count, and their really good start that they had to the match count. Unfortunately for Queanbeyan, like we said previously, when it was 7 points adrift 2 weeks ago, it's going to be a hill for them to climb now. But what they can do is obviously they're just going to focus on their own game, try and pick up as many points as they can, and hope that Tuggies drop some points. Like we said, though, a bit of a hill to climb for Queanbeyan.
Absolutely. Moving on. Next up, Matt, we have Yoogali, who got a 3-1 victory against Weston Molonglo. Isaac Donadell, Priest, and Armanini on the score sheet for the hosts, and Sellers on the score sheet for the visiting team in this one. Yoogali opened the scoring early on through Isaac Donadell, Joe Priest, and Armanini. Armanini, scored to get Yoogali back in the lead and seal the points, respectively. It's a huge win for them, as they're now 4 points off the top 4. So, just even by what we've sort of broke down so far, a lot of implications for sides in and around that top 4 from this past weekend, Matt. We mentioned last week they just needed a couple of, good results in the near future to make this a reality. And now they're sort of back in there and, they've put some really good form together and results are speaking for that over the last few rounds. Weston, they pushed, but they certainly didn't make it easy for Yoogali. They struck back through Michael Seller to level the scoring in this game, obviously before Priest gave them the lead back. They weren't able to hold on as Yoogali pushed at that point in the match. And, once again, a lot of absences that don't make things, easy for a football side. And, they seem to have travelled with only 2 subs, like Webby mentioned to us last week on the show. So very difficult in those circumstances, Matt, when you don't have, enough firepower, even just on the bench to sort of help give guys a break and a rest. But nevertheless, a great result for Yoogali. Gets them in and around that top 4, like we mentioned, with these other teams fighting for, top 4 football. And, Weston, they've just got to pick themselves up. We say this every week, but they just have to keep going. They can't keep hanging their heads too low. They've got to just have a little bit more belief that they can, get a win. And I'm sure that they'll be able to do that in no time. What match do we have last up from our CPL action?
Next up, Tuggeranong United, Brindabella Blues, 3-0 to Tuggeranong. Once in the Tuggeranong derby, once again, another early and quick start from Tuggies, as has been their custom this season. Bunell and Hislop with the goals early on. Walker rounded off the victory late on in the matchup with his 13th goal of the season. After last week's second half slip up of the 3-goal lead, Tuggies made sure to be resolute defensively and try and keep that clean sheet, as we sort of pointed out, they would be aiming to make this case, after last week. Another important factor is, of course, like we mentioned before, now 8 points ahead in the race for promotion. So they've given themselves a really good cushion again after they conceded some points last week. Mitch Stevens, I've been told, was absent from this encounter, as well as Ray Jr. as well for the Brindies. So both sides without their head coach heading into this fixture. Brindies weren't able to round off their great form against, the best side at the moment in the competition. However, their performance, from what I've been told, was better than their first one against Tuggeranong in this one, once again illustrating the improvement of this very young side. They're still in the top 4, though. They did drop from 3rd to 4th with this defeat and are 2 points behind White Eagles, and they are also 2 points ahead of the likes of Wagga and ANU. And like we said, like you mentioned before, everyone from Yoogali up, they've all got a chance for this top 4. So we're in for a very interesting final half of the season per se. What are our round 13 fixtures to happen in a fortnight, Michael?
We'll kick things off with Weston Molonglo, who play host to Queanbeyan City, Matt, Saturday, 16th, 2:45 p.m. at Woden Park, enclosed. I'm going to go for a Queanbeyan City win in this one. They'll be chomping at the bit to right that wrong of losing to White Eagles. Obviously, it's a derby, a lot's on the line, and those are the sort of games you never want to lose in terms of bragging rights. But I do think they'll come back in this one and get the 3 points at the expense of Weston Molonglo. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, look, I agree. It's going to be, like we said, it's going to be difficult for Western in terms of numbers, but Webby did say in the next couple of weeks they should be at fuller capacity anyway in terms of the teams. A lot of players have been away and injured and whatnot. But like we said, Queanbeyan, they've got a hill to climb, and it's going to be difficult to see them dropping a lot of points recently. I'm sure they're going to try and regroup and try and avoid that from happening.
Most certainly. Next up, we've got Brindabella Blues at home against Yoogali, Saturday, 16th, 3 p.m. at Ipen Park there in Corwell. This is going to be a very, very tough match, Matt, as both sides are sort of in similar positions on the table looking to get themselves in the top four. I'm going to go for Brindis in this one. It'll be close. I've just got this feeling that Brindis are going to sneak away with this one. It's going to be very close, though. Yoogali are in some great form as well. It could easily be a draw, I was thinking, but I am going to lean towards Brindy.
Well, there's only 4 points now. Of course, the difference between Yoogali and Brindis. Brindis in fourth, Yoogali in seventh. Obviously, a lot to play for in the next few fixtures for everyone in and around that. I'm going to go for Brindis here purely based on the loss against Tuggeranong. Going to be raring to go to bounce back from this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Yoogali can get the victory here, or if it's even a draw. It's going to be a very, very close matchup, and there might even be a few goals in this one as well, I think. But this match, very big in terms of the implications of the table in this one.
Absolutely. Next up, we have Tuggeranong United up against Wagga City Wanderers, Saturday, 16th, 3 p.m. at Canberra, 2:01. I'm going to go for a Tuggeranong United victory. They're the table toppers. They're the team that has looked absolutely sensational so far this season in their bid to try and gain promotion back to NPL football. So I'm going to go for Tuggeranong United to get the 3 points in this match. But Wagga will certainly put up a fight. What's your prediction?
Yeah, look, I agree. It's going to be difficult to see Tuggies drop too many points. But like you said, Wagga, there's no reason why they can't, they're obviously going to fight for this one, but there's no reason to say why they can't sort of do something similar to what ANU have done. They've had a very, very good track record recently and really good form. In saying that, though, I think Tuggies will just be too strong for them. But it'll be close on what people think.
All right. Lastly, we have ANU FC up against Canberra White Eagles. This will be an absolute cracker, Matt. Saturday, June 16th, over there at ANU South Oval. I'm going to go for a Canberra White Eagles victory in this one. They'll take a lot of confidence out of that win against Queanbeyan City. I expect ANU to bounce back, but I just see Eagles, being a little bit too strong, especially building and going off that confidence in that derby against Queanbeyan. I think that was a huge, huge win for them, and it might be a point where they can sort of build a lot of confidence and, get some more wins under their belt instead of they've had a bit of a topsy-turvy season at some parts of the year. Obviously, they've won most of their games and lost, but they just have been struggling to really get themselves in sort of formidable form like a Tuggeranong United have been able to do. What's your take?
I'm going to say a draw for this one. This is a match where when they both play each other, it's always very, very close. I was at this match first time round, and yeah, it was so close. It's always a fiery match between these two as well. Very competitive. White Eagles obviously coming off that very good result. There's no reason why either side can't take anything from this one. I can see this going all three ways. This one's just easy for me to sit on the fence.
Yeah.
All right, that's us done for today. Michael, obviously we've got another fortnight of matches, but in terms of next week, any last words? We're going to see some very big matches in terms of implications for the season next week.
Yeah, we are, Matt. This weekend, this past weekend proved a lot in terms of, where teams are at and how results affected them in terms of, potentially fighting for finals football. So I expect that to continue in a fortnight's time in terms of, the results that we're going to see and what impacts that has on different teams in different positions in the table for their respective leagues. And obviously, we've got Kanga Cup coming up. And like you mentioned at the top, it's been a 2-year hiatus since we've had, one of the biggest competitions in the Southern Hemisphere return back to Canberra. So it'll be good for the nation's capital to play host to that tournament again. We know how big of a competition it is. Whether you've watched it or you played in it, everyone knows about the Kanga Cup. So, a lot of football festivity in Canberra coming up over the next sort of couple of weeks. So looking forward to getting into it.
It certainly will be interesting, and good luck to all those involved in the Kanga Cup. And yeah, it's a big, big week for Canberra football in that regard. We'll see you back here in a fortnight's time for episode 60. This was episode 59 of the Canberra Football Show. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.